A year after Kenya's first lockdown, at least 5 counties, including Kenya's capital, Nairobi, have once again been locked down. Surging infections and the emergence of new variants of the coronavirus have sadly seen many lose friends and family. As we do our best to stay safe, I've had conversations with several Kenyans who tested positive for the coronavirus, and in this episode, I share some of those experiences with you. Hello and thank you for catching up with me for this week's episode of Sheila Lives Out Loud. We continue to share COVID journeys with you to help you stay safe in this season. Please subscribe to this channel and hit notifications for more content from this channel. Aurelia was one of the first Kenyans to be quarantined for testing positive for the coronavirus. Contact tracing led to her being tested. Completely asymptomatic, Aurelia had no symptoms and no physical problems. But in keeping with the protocols, she was placed in isolation. So what was that like?
Well, I have heard of, people going to cells, to jail. I can equate that to, because you are in a space where you're out of your comfort zone. You're away from your house where you just do your things the way you want them done. So you're taken to a place outside in the counties. I don't know about Nairobi, but in the counties had been asked to prepare isolation centers, in readiness for any COVID numbers rising. So in Nairobi, the county had also prepared a place. But the worst thing was that, the isolation center we were taken to, it's in one of the coldest places in Nyandarua. That was the worst thing about being in that place, because there was fog and mist throughout. You're away from family. I had people visiting, but you're separated by a glass wall. So it was also not the best. You feel like, you're in jail, you can't do anything. But we survived. It was a place where when we got there was no water, the basic amenities there. In fact, from my own experience there, the entire county got to realize that, the county was not ready for COVID patients, because there was no water in that facility, there was no electricity, there were beds for patients, there were mattresses, but there were no beddings. We had a change of, they gave us those pajamas, those hospital clothes. We only had a change of those clothes once in 2 weeks. Like in the entire 10 to 14 days I stayed there, we only had a change of clothes once. Well, about food, food was in plenty. In Nyandarua, food is in plenty, so we had no issue of food. But in terms of even preparation for the medics, they got the training, how to handle us, how to deal with us. They were trained while we were at the center,
Oh dear. So you were their test cases, really, which was most unfortunate.
Yes, but so they would share with us, they would tell us, we do not know how to handle you people. In fact, the first days, they would put our food somewhere very far from us, and, they would literally run away, so that we can, then now go to pick the food, and then, they close the doors. But now later they were supplied with the protective equipment, and they would bring the food to us. So, but emotionally, now that I did not have any symptoms, at least there was that positive side, but I was emotionally disturbed, because every moment I would still think that, maybe tomorrow is when the symptoms will just, flare up, and I will start having chest pains. And then when I look at the facilities we have in our county, there were stocks of, there's an ICU facility, we have the medicines, we have everything, but actually there was nothing. So I was always afraid, if today I have the chest pains, where will I go to? Do we have ventilators? We do not have an ICU bed, even a single bed. So that was my worry. And I was also worried about the people I had come into contact with. As much as I had called them, the day I got the news, I called everyone I had come into contact with for the last 1 week. I told them, go get tested. I just received my results. So I was also afraid of, before they got their results, what if anybody got infected and now they will kind of blame me for whatever happened to them. So I could only just wait for the 14-day period to get over, and then they were to conduct a second test for us, which turned negative, luckily, so we did not have to overstay at the isolation center.
Annie's experience was different. While at work, she started experiencing flu-like symptoms and chalked it down to travelling out of town and being exposed to the car's air conditioning. A splitting headache was quickly followed by a loss of smell and taste and a noisy chest. One night, following severe sweating and chills, she realized she needed help.
On a Thursday night, I felt something funny. My chest was heavy. There was, I don't know how to call that feeling, because unasikia kujikuna huko kwa chest huko ndani. And then the thought of you're about to cough makes you feel like you start preparing yourself. You feel like you should cry fast because the cough is very, very painful. It reached a point that night, you cough, unajikojolea, because it's very painful. And then there is a lot of noise in the chest, inside the chest now. It's like povu. You know, povu ya sabuni. Ama unasikia ni kama ni ant hill, and then the ants are there. They are crowded, they are eating, and they are making noise in your chest. So that night, I now started feeling like even breathing is a problem. And you know at that point, you're really trying to convince yourself that no, this is not, I'm not unable to breathe, because you also don't want it to be COVID. You don't want to think inside that line. So you sleep, unalala kwa tumbo, unalala kwa mgongo, you turn the other side, unaenda pande ya miguu, you use this pillow, you feel this is the problem, you change the pillows. I move from my bed to my son's bed. I move from there now to the couch. I tell myself it is positioning is the problem. But no, you can't breathe. I can't breathe. And then at some point, the same night now, I felt there is that feeling now. The headache is there. The dizziness, the bed itself is going round. You feel like you're in a swing. So the pain became too much. At around 5 in the morning, I called a friend of mine who is a priest. We used to school with him. And I told him, the way I'm feeling, Father, you need to visit me, because I now need to be released. I feel, I can smell death. I could smell it. I could feel that all is not well, and I think I'm about to die. So he told me, Anisha, I'm not coming to do that. I'll pray. And then you will wake up and go to the hospital. So when I woke up in the morning, I called my sister. I also called my mom. I told them how I feel. I have COVID. I haven't tested for it, but if there is that COVID, I have it. If it is not COVID, then there is a new disease in town, and it is worse than COVID. That is what I told them. So of course they are really making noise. No, stop associating with yourself with that thing. But I tell them, kama kunayo, this is it now. I have it. So of course they refuse, and then they insist you just go to hospital. So at around 10, I leave my bed again. I come to the sitting room. Now I open my door. I struggle to open the door because I could not walk. That time I cannot touch anything. I cannot see anything. Dizziness. I feel my head is full in the house, and I'm inside that head. So it's like a balloon, and I'm inside that balloon. So I struggle to open my door, and then immediately after opening the door, I collapse. I cannot breathe. I cannot talk. But fortunately, I'm holding my phone. I really struggled. I struggled for some time. And then suddenly I was able to at least press the phone anywhere. And so when I pressed, of course, it called somebody that I had talked to a few days ago.
Yeah.
And then somebody spoke. He could hear. He heard that I'm not okay. So he called, because he knew I was sick, he called somebody, a neighbor now.
Yeah.
Because I live within an institution, staff quarters. So he called a neighbor who came now and found me on the floor. And that is how they took me to hospital.
How long did you spend in the hospital? How many days?
I spent around 7 days in the hospital.
And did they put you consistently on oxygen throughout?
I was on oxygen throughout, day and night. Yeah, because even when I was in the other facility, they had taken my oxygen. When they were taking the BP, they also did this test for oxygen circulation, and it was very low. Yeah, when I was getting admitted at KU, my oxygen circulation was 80 and sometimes going below 80 to 70, 76, 77 up.
Okay, and what is usually the normal one for you?
The normal one is supposed to be always above 95.
Okay, so that was quite low.
Annie was one of the many who sought treatment from hospitals, but an even greater number of Kenyans who've tested positive have experienced home-based care. Evangeline spoke to me about her COVID journey while at home, and it wasn't as easy as some would think. Due to underlying conditions, she continues to be on home-based care, but from what she experienced, she chose to speak up on testing positive and letting friends and family know about one's status. And here is why that was important to her.
Remember my promise with my God, the day I felt I was losing my life. I decided if I get well, I promised my God if I get well, I must go public, because I could see the way people are getting stigma, especially the way they were being picked from their flats away with ambulances. It was so traumatizing. So I decided to go public and so that I can help people fight stigma. My own colleagues who got affected and infected as well. So I decided to go public for their sake, and even formed a WhatsApp group where we are encouraging one another, sharing our experiences. We started as very few people in the WhatsApp, and now we are becoming many because of the network. And there we are sharing our experiences and advising. We even brought in the guy from Kemri who is doing for us home-based tests. You can do your test in the house so that it is not stigmatizing people. And that's how I felt, Sheila, that I should go public. I've been to the media houses, I've been to radio, local stations, I've gone public on Facebook, and then you can hear about the WhatsApp where I'm sharing my experience so that people can know it is manageable, anyone can get it. I normally say, Sheila, if Trump can get COVID, he's a president of a very powerful country. Who is even just a mere person from Daraka not to get COVID?
The mental stress from testing positive for the coronavirus is difficult, and one of my friends, Leslie Sanya, made time to speak on his experience from testing positive for COVID. He was in China for work and spent several weeks in isolation there. He journaled his experience and his thoughts on a daily basis and chose to share those posts on his Instagram handle to help break down the stigma of testing positive and helping others get through the isolation. It's hard enough being in quarantine. Now, imagine the mental work that must go in when you're so far away from home. So what kept Leslie going? Take a look.
One of the first things I realized was I was in a hospital, a government hospital, which has, 4 white walls, a hallway across the rooms, and that was not going to change, That was the only constant thing. The structure of the building and the times of the meals. I knew that was constant. But what I knew for sure was no 2 days are going to be the same. Even if I woke up at 7 a.m. every morning and slept at 9 p.m. every night, no 2 days would be the same. So I have gratitude, to God. From April, when the pandemic was really, picking up pace, I had realized that, this is not anything normal. It has appended travel, the travel industry. It has appended businesses. It has appended people's lives. We've lost a lot of people. So I started digging deep in April because of the nature of my job. I realized that, the work I used to do, the self-talk I give myself was extremely important, because all the people most of the people I met in hospital were very afraid. People are afraid of the unknown, including me. Yeah. But I decided that I will not let that fear make me lose the battle in fighting the virus. It was a mental battle. I needed to continue positively talk to myself, reassure myself that I'm fine. I was asymptomatic, by the way, so I didn't have any fever, any cough, any chills, nothing. I always have a fantastic appetite anyway, but I decided that when I'm going to give them the delicious Chinese food, I'm going to eat all of it, because, a lot of people still during the pandemic are skipping meals because they lost a job. And they do not have livelihoods. So the least I could do is have a balanced meal, thank God for the meal, wait for the next meal, wait for the next morning, wait for the next evening, and thank God every morning. So it was just my inner talk, my self-talk. It was as positive as I could possibly imagine it would be. And there was nothing else I had to lose, because I had 24 hours every day. And those 24 hours, like everybody else, there's nobody who has 25 or 23 hours. It's what we do with our time that makes us who we are and builds our character. And I needed to continue to be as positive as possible, because I had very limited options. I had a full tummy and I had a bed to sleep on. And I had doctors who kept coming and checking on me and finding out how I'm doing. So I was extremely positive and thankful throughout the process. One of my friends had advised me to write, to note out the timings, what was happening, to take photos of my time there, because chances are very high that this is the first and last time this is going to happen to me in my lifetime. And this is a historic moment, because the virus has completely upended the whole world's economy. So I was it's a very personal battle. It's a very personal struggle, because everybody is interpreting the consequences of the virus differently. People have lost loved ones, and in a space of less than a week. So I know it's a very heavy topic to talk about, and while we speak now, while we're in the middle of the second wave in most parts of the Northern Hemisphere, it doesn't make the virus any less serious. It doesn't mean that we, throw caution to the wind and not wash our hands and not maintain social distancing. We need to be even more serious now, because the variants of the virus right now as we speak, and a lot of research is being done to find out whether the current vaccines are going to protect us against the variants, right? So there's so much work that still needs to be done. What I would say is the virus has given us as human beings an opportunity to reset how we live our lives. We need to find ways to be more sustainable, to at least be kinder to each other. We need to love each other, because you really, really never know what's going to happen, in the next hour from now, tomorrow, next week, next month. We can only, plan so much based on what we've been through. And I decided that every day I was in hospital in China, I'll wake up and behave like that's the last day I have to live. And I made beautiful connections. And to be honest as well, I interacted with a lot of patients, with the doctors. I made sure that I stopped seeing doctors as machines behind a PPE mask. Because those are also human beings. They're as human as we are. And it means a lot to them when a patient actually asks them how they're doing, because they would come in the morning and say, so how are you doing? How are you doing, Mr. Leslie? And I'm like, I'm fine. And I'd ask them, how are you doing? And then they'd pause and be like, you actually care how I'm doing? I'm like, yes, I do. I'd really like to know how you're also doing, because, they're also living, they're not at home. They're coming from a designated hospital, or not hospital, a designated residential area, which might be a hotel, because they can't live with their families because they're exposed to the virus every day. So they're also going through a battle by themselves, So it was a very interesting place where patients and doctors are going through personal battles, but we have to find ways of growing and learning from it and being better human beings.
as we soldier through yet another lockdown, please stay safe and do your best to take care of not just yourself, but others around you. I look forward to catching up with you again next week as we have an exclusive conversation with the Governor of Mombasa County, His Excellency Governor Hassan Ali Joho. Just days before the lockdown, we were invited to the beautiful county of Mombasa to chat with the Governor on progress made since March last year, the current situation, and the way forward. Don't miss out on that chat, so please hit subscribe and click notifications and live out loud in all that you do.